and SNiPP Global Perspectives on Loyalty webinar. So for those of you who have never used GoToWebinar, you can use the panel box on the right-hand side to submit your questions. We really love questions here at the IPM, so if there's anything you want to send to us during the presentation, please send them in. You don't have to wait till the end. So you can submit those questions throughout the presentation, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. If there are more questions than we can answer in the time we have for this webinar, we'll submit answers at the end. So we'll also be sending a copy of the presentation and the recording down to all the attendees and registrants for the next 2 days. So if there's anything you missed, you'll be able to go back and listen to it. So now I'd just like to introduce our speakers. So, as myself, I'm Kerry Treville, I'm the Managing Director of the IPM. We also have Christian Hausmann, who is the VP and Global Director of Loyalty at SNiPP. He's also the Managing Director of Germany, Switzerland and Austria, and he's based over in Zurich. We also have Mark Spicer, Director of Loyalty Solutions for SNiPP in the UK. He joined SNiPP last year with over 20 years of experience and with a really key remit of creating loyalty solutions for his clients. We also have Mike Patak, who's based over in Chicago. Mike is VP of Loyalty and heads up this division for the US. So just a little bit about the IPM before we get started. So one of our jobs here at the IPM is to really celebrate outstanding promotional marketing across the UK, Europe and the world. As we're the only trade association that truly represents brands and agencies and service agencies, we're here to protect, promote and progress the people and the work that they support, in fact the work you guys do every day. So this webinar is part of our effectiveness series. So we're bringing together a series of webinars and conferences, and we're starting this one with loyalty. And this is to help you as agencies and brands deliver more effectively through shared knowledge and insight. So just before we get going, just a little word about SNiPP as well. So SNiPP is a global sales promotion loyalty disruptor that helps brands and agencies inspire, trial, and engagement and loyalty with collecting meaningful customer data. So there's a huge array here of what's happening. Christian, would you like to introduce SNiPP a little more?
Yes, my name is Christian Hausmann. Just for all the ones that, I know some of you are familiar with SNiPP, but for all the others, I'll just give a brief recap for those who are not familiar with SNiPP. We are a publicly listed company with around 120 employees, headquartered in Bethesda, Maryland in the US. We have offices across the US and Canada, in Ireland, Switzerland, the Middle East and India. And the essence of who we are and what we do is basically our incentive marketing technology platform that enables brands and retailers to drive customer engagement and purchase. So we support promotions and help building and intensifying loyalty. We have two hearts. On one side we build shopper marketing and promotion solutions, and there we have especially our really unique receipt processing engine that is right now market leader in the US. And on the other side we have an enterprise class loyalty platform including data analytics, where we operate different loyalty schemes in Europe, Australia and the US.
Thank you, Christian. So just before we get going, we start talking about some of the trends in loyalty. Let's have a little think about what true loyalty actually means. So we've got Euros happening in the UK at the moment, and have a look at these wonderful fans really celebrating, enjoying themselves. But think about that true loyalty, that if you think about these amazing Welsh fans crying with the emotion of the football, true loyalty is something that is very, very pure. And I think as agencies, we strive to get our brands to engage with those customers in the most raw way possible. And as brands, we would love to have this kind of loyalty. So without further ado, let's click on and think about what trends in loyalty are today. So we're going to be talking about a number of different things here. So the trends that are affecting customer loyalty, where the consumer landscape shift sits at the moment, where mobile intelligent devices come into this equation together with the sharing economy, and with perspectives from all of our speakers today, we want to really think about what current and future trends are. We've got some great case studies to share, and we're going to look at what brands are doing to gain that kind of loyalty that we've just seen with those football supporters, their consumers. So firstly, let's go over to Christian, and he can start off the first trend on the great consumer landscape shift.
Yes, the last 10 years have brought significant changes in the demographic, psychographic landscape in the US and Europe. And in combination, in combination with an incredible technical progress, and that had a really profound effect on buying habits, consumer expectations, and what consumers perceive as being valuable. Classical consumer segmentation has more or less gone, and now we have a fragmentation, or you could say also tremendous variety out there. The concept of not all customers created equal applies not just to how much they spend with a brand, but also to a customer's personal experiences. The psychology of loyalty teaches that people's behavior or actions are a direct result of their individual beliefs, but also financial means, and beliefs especially are formed through experiences. This great diversity of the consumer landscape, a consumer landscape that will have a diversity of personal experiences, will demand further personalization of messages, benefits, offers, and rewards in all channels. We could call that hyper-personalization, but in the end, I would say it's an old dream that has become reality. For the older of us, one-to-one marketing, we called it 10, 15 years ago. The good thing is technology makes it possible in a way we couldn't think of some years ago. The bad thing is the reverse of the medal. Consumers are expecting it right now more and more. Consumers want this experience of personalized, of being recognized as an individual, and we have to follow.
Thank you, Christian. This is Mike Patak, and I appreciate the opportunity to bring the U.S. perspective to this discussion, which hopefully we all will be able to share our thoughts and learnings. We start off here really with what is called the single view of customer, which is really not new. It's been in the industry for quite a long time, but it continues to grow and evolve as a tactic in the industry. What is also not new is what we're up against in the marketplace, as we've all seen the statistics, particularly here in the U.S., where most households belong to 30-plus loyalty programs and are really engaged, actively engaged in far less than a third of those programs. So obviously the challenge is that consumers lack bandwidth, and we continually desire more face time with consumers. So single view of customer is really looking at knowledge that's derived by the data that's collected within the various programs. We've also heard a lot of buzzwords and different applications around multiple channel, omni-channel, hyper-personalization. These are all trends that are working towards getting closer to understanding the consumer, how they react within the program, outside of the program, really in sort of everyday life. The traditional application, obviously, of any sort of loyalty value proposition is really in the direct transactional relationship, right? So a spend and get, doing something within a program and get rewarded for that activity. What we're seeing now, though, is looking more holistically at that consumer experience through what we refer to as a lifestyle focus, which is derived by experiences from the brand and include things that are not transactional based, so things that are non-spend activity, engaging with the brand on things that are outside of just purchasing product, but engaging videos, engaging commentary, a number of things that drive additional equity into that program. So essentially what really single view of the customer is establishing that access point from the brand to consumers based on where they're at, when they are there in some particular point or in the moment, and how they want that experience to be delivered to them. So continual innovation and the evolution of that single view of customer, looking holistically at that total experience in and outside the brand, is really the key to driving the success of that SVC. I think we can go to a case study to provide some representation of how that plays out. LANCOME is a premier beauty brand that sells through retail channels and also directly to consumers through their online properties. The program Elite Awards derives points to consumers based on their purchases. So consumers are essentially engaging the brand through retailers by taking a copy of their receipt, their purchase transaction, and uploaded it into a portal experience that really derives their program. And this really creates exposure to anywhere the consumer is that they're buying LANCOME product, and basically consolidating that relationship through the experiential portal. Members are also able to earn equity into that program with these non-spend activities that we mentioned. So watching videos, reading blogs, completing surveys, referring friends, and really lots of other activities. Most importantly here, though, is that in this particular program, consumers are able to get more points. The value proposition is skewed towards non-spend activity because the purpose of the program is to get closer to the consumer and be able to engage the consumer really outside of just that purchase relationship. Rewards back into the LANCOME product are obviously their products and other items. And an additional nuance of this program is it also has a B2B flavor as well. And so what we refer to as beauty assistants here in the States are able to participate in this program as well. And so when a consumer comes to a retail channel and the beauty assistants provide that assistance in purchasing products, etc., they're able to provide a code to that consumer that allows credit for that transaction within the structure of that loyalty program. So the consumers are motivated because they had a great experience with that BA, and they actually award that BA by saying, hey, I was helped by this consumer with their employment code or their beauty assistant code, and then they're afforded points into the program, much like a consumer would. So the outcome is a number of fold. We're obviously getting more face time with the consumers. Consumers have far more equity in the program, the brand relationship, and we're able to get far more personalized with the information that we're collecting via all of these channels that help provide that single view of customer.
Hi there, it's Mark Spicer here in London along with Kerry Trevilla, AIPM, and my view is going to be very, very British, and I think I'm taking the lead from Mike on single customer view. When you're running a program which is within one country, I think it's very easy to take into account the cultural differences within a country. But if you've got a program that's going cross-border, you've got a number of different cultural challenges there. And as the British, as we all know, we can actually be quite reserved. So if you're a retailer, a brand that's trying to get to this single customer view, it's hard. And if you look at all the different channels that we use, from Facebook or email or push notifications, there's so many distribution channels, it actually makes it harder to get to a single customer view. So if you're in a role where you are trying to get to a single customer view, you've got multiple distribution channels, if it feels hard, it's because it is hard. However, what we do know is once you get to this single customer view, the amount of additional data that you actually get out of it, the value of that, is absolutely immense. It's huge. I think the biggest crime that's committed by a lot of brands, retailers, whoever you buy from, is that they collect a lot of data, but then it's not used or it's out of date. How often have you received an email that either is not relevant to you, or actually the points total within it isn't actually up to date because you've earned points recently. So focus on getting that single customer view. Look at all the different touch points for the customer. The omni-channel, the words omni-channel have been around for a while, so that's somebody looking in store, buying online, and then looking in store. So it is difficult to track. Identify your different touch points, identify how you're going to capture that data, and social media is a big player in this and will help contribute to your single customer view. What we find the biggest challenge is with social media, you might have thousands, millions of likes. How many of those customers actually buy from you? And what we're seeing is of all the likes that you have, it's probably about 10 to 20%, and the remainder of those people actually are lurkers. They could be potential buyers. They may have potential interest in your product, service, your brand, but there'll be some in there that are following you who may not necessarily buy from you. So a lot of time and effort needs to be put on social media and those channels to identify who are the real customers that are following you there. So another big story that came out of the UK within the last 6 months, of course, is Marks and Spencer's. They've resisted for a long time to actually not have a loyalty program. They've now launched Sparks. So what that actually says to the retail world is if Marks and Spencer's doing this, if you can't beat them, join them. That does send a very strong signal to the consumer that they are now finally being recognised. What we also know about Marks and Spencer's, they have 6 product categories, but you typically buy only from 1 or 2 of those product categories. A loyalty program only really works well when there is an opportunity to cross-sell, upsell, but you need to know who those customers are to really ensure you actually give them that level of personalisation, because let's be honest, that's the expectation now.
Yeah, let's take a look to a real example in retail. Our Austrian client leader in SCHUH is one of the largest shoe retailers in Europe, with 350 stores across 10 countries, and they wanted to realize a real omnichannel customer experience. And as the core for the realization of this dream, to say it like that, to the realization of the single customer view, they selected the loyalty program, as the loyalty program basically is the natural place where identified customers are filed. So what we did together with them was we implemented a customer loyalty and gift card platform for omnichannel retail, being able to handle different brands, different countries, different languages, multiple currencies. Actually, we run 2 different loyalty programs and the central gift card platform for all brands on this one platform. And nearly all systems, and it's just one system basically that is not real-time integrated, like EPOS, like the e-commerce, like the member portal, like the 3D, they have a 3D foot scan with an attached tablet for registration, the loyalty app, the email newsletter tool. They are all connected in real time, so we have at every second we have a real time, real single customer view. The only system that is not real-time connected is the ERP system of the client, but this system can access the data mart via a views directly. So we strongly believe that in the real-time data connection between all the systems, this is the future, because people out there, the smartphone generation, expects nothing else than real-time update through all your potential touch points that you offer the client.
Thanks, Christian. So want to now talk about how big data has come about here in the States. And so big data is just one of those buzzwords that a consultant came up with to obviously monetize somewhere down the line, but it really does mean the aggregation of customer data for the purposes of applying that value proposition. And it really has become a need as much as it has been a want with respect to how to manage loyalty propositions. And obviously we talk a lot about engagement and getting closer to consumers. And the only way you can really do that obviously is through data. We all know from our loyalty foundations that loyalty was really put in place to do a couple of fundamental things. And one was to establish that direct relationship with consumers, obviously. The second one is to collect data. And obviously the third one is to reward them for that activity. But what ends up happening is that you get so myopically focused on taking that data and applying the value proposition, it just becomes a circular process, and you forget about the activities that are around that transaction. And therefore we still see, even today with all of this data, that lack of personalization in a lot of programs, which obviously plays directly into the levels of engagement and the retention and the lapsing of consumers that are in these programs, because they feel that they're not being listened to, right? So you're asking them for this data, they're participating in these programs, which are not doing things that are attributable to their specific activities. As Mark said, it could be as simple as an email that you get that has nothing to do with their spend activity or nothing to do with what they're involved in. And as simple as providing the wrong point balance or some misinformation that they should have never gotten in the first place. So this consumer insights, which is really a new sort of division into many of organizations, brand organizations, which is really another word for data analytics, has become more prominent than ever and really deals with this single view of customer that we talked about as well. And what the big driver of managing big data obviously is technology. And technology has come a long way. It is now far more sophisticated, available, and affordable to all sorts of organizations to tap into. So whether it was a bandwidth issue, whether it was an expense issue, whether it was an expertise or knowledge issue, you really have the tool sets available to you to begin to look at this data holistically and begin looking at predictive modeling, basket analysis, and attrition modeling. And obviously with the goal of getting closer to the customer and personalization and what is often referred to as one to a few. And if you can really get there, if you really can get there, one-to-one experience with the consumer. But the challenge obviously is how do you get at that data, right? So if you can really solve for the data, you're better than halfway there. And so one of the concepts, particularly for brands that don't have access directly into POS through integration, and where most brands don't, there's often difficulties in getting a relationship at all with consumers. And so if you look at receipt processing, which we talked about earlier, as that conduit for a relationship, the receipt provides an incredible amount of information that can be leveraged in a value proposition for loyalty. It actually is the linchpin, if you think about it, of that relationship with consumers, because they can act upon that receipt, register for a program, and begin to repeatedly share that experience with you through their receipt information. Any value proposition that you can really think of that may be integrated at POS, for example, from a traditional retailer, can be almost affected as well within a brand situation. You can do time stamping, you can do basket and mix analysis, you can do total dollar sale, you can do continuity programs where you have to make a particular purchase over a period of time, even extended, or what they refer to as evergreen loyalty, right, with receipts on a regular basis. So really this data becomes the foundation again for that single view of customer, right? And more importantly, it's data that is yours. It's data that you own, and it gives you insight into what's going on holistically with that consumer from a basket perspective. Not just your brand, but also other things that they're buying, other consumer products that they're shopping, even your competitors. And we know how important that is because oftentimes even our best customers, however defined, are only spending a certain percentage of their spend in that category with you. They're going elsewhere, whether for stock reasons, for inventory reasons, or for location. So this becomes incredibly valuable with respect to the data that you can collect. And again, as I mentioned, best of all, it's all your data to manipulate.
So again, following on from Mike's point, we've all heard the words big data for a long time now, and it should be used to really understand who the customer is and make sure you give them the right time, right offer. You know, we talk about freebies, discounts, but there is still a huge amount to be said for the trust that you have within a brand, how you feel about it, how it makes you feel. So 40% of shoppers trust that, you know, in the UK. Actually, if you look at the statistic, actually in the United States, it's actually 93%. Trust is really, really important. So if you're a brand out there, you have to look at how you use that data to increase the level of trust, and then make sure that's personalized to the individuals. Because again, as we've said before, you know, if you're getting the wrong time, wrong offer, that actually reduces or can erode the trust that you have with that brand, because you feel they're not taking you or looking at you as an individual, you're not being recognized as an individual. We've got a case study which we can talk about. Actually it's actually an Irish case study for us, for AppleGreen, which actually won the Best New Loyalty Program in 2013. And what's interesting about the fact that it's AppleGreen in Irish, you know, the Irish and their culture is very, very loyal. AppleGreen itself, it's one of Ireland's largest independent forecourt retailers as far as petrol goes, over 100 sites across the Republic. And it's traditional, they reward their customers, their members, for purchases, and that is petrol as well as anything else you can actually buy within the store. But what they want to do was really drive engagement to really understand who their customers are, and petrol is a very, very fierce market because of the price. And look, you know, if it's a penny, 1 cent cheaper a mile down the road per litre, do you know what, you're going to do it. So there was a real emphasis here to make sure that Applegreen really was able to hook its customers in. So they did some very, very interesting things, and they actually ran some promotions out to their members. And what they saw is when they actually run a promotion, engagement levels are actually running very, very high. So therefore, there's one promotion they did, it went to around 50,000 of their members who received vouchers. But the take-up rate was actually incredibly high. So therefore, what we saw in this particular program is 82% of the members actually took advantage of the offer they were given. And that number is absolutely unprecedented, and you would see an engagement level that high. But what that says to Applegreen is actually the trust in their brand is very high. The customer, the member, understands what Applegreen means to them. And look, we all need petrol, but like I say, if you can get 1 cent or 1 pence a litre cheaper somewhere else, you're going to drive that extra mile. So therefore, what they also did was really target the base who hadn't been to an Applegreen for a while. Let's actually win back these members, let's win back these customers to make sure that they actually come back to Applegreen and not somebody else. And then the active members who visited, their average spend actually increased by about 10%. So the incremental spend that you see in a loyalty program is really the reason why you, well, the bottom line reason to run a loyalty program is to increase bottom line profits. But what you can do and drive the incremental spend, you can really start to see the numbers and the people that are doing this. Because once you identify who your profitable customers are, how did you find them? And how do you find more of them, but more importantly, how do you keep them? So when you look at this whole campaign that they did, where they saw incredibly high engagement levels, they actually saw an average spend increase of around 7%. So a 7%, you know, for any business is a nice number to achieve. And what's even better about how Applegreen did this program is they were able to put the names against the people that participated. I think it's very easy to send a discount coupon or a 2-for-1 offer, and it's great, it gets used in store, but quite often you don't know who the person was. And this is where there's been a collision of the sales promotion world and loyalty, in that sales promotion techniques are now being used in the loyalty program. So therefore, if you actually want to benefit from this discount, sign up to my program, and then you can benefit. But the amount of detail that it gives you, but the best thing about it is you can actually put the name of the customer who actually benefited from the discount, and actually there you can really target them again with different offers to really drive that engagement.
Yes, again, I just wanted to give you a short view into Leader and SCHUH, because as I mentioned, we worked hard on the realization of this 360 customer view, and what is even more difficult for a client like Leader and SCHUH that provide, they sell shoes, is that normally they have 1, sometimes 2 purchases per year. So keeping some contact, the communication engagement up to a certain level is extremely important for them. And so the collection and consolidation of all the different data sources they have is for them really important. And with the introduction of the second loyalty program this year, on the same platform, we basically started a second phase, because right now all purchase data from POS, from eShop, and all the behavioral data from the eShop, from app emails like clicks, views, abandoned orders, are all in one place and can be analyzed. And we even have information like credit check information from eShop orders. We have the 3D information of your feet. We know the kits, because there is a kits pass also. Means if you purchase shoes for your kids, then there's like a stamp card in the background on top of the normal loyalty program. So they know a lot about their members, about their consumers. And now they are even able to create a cross-brand member profile in the background, means they are able to see which consumers are members in just one or in both of their loyalty programs, which purchase online, which purchase not online, and they are really able to create personalized offers and run tiered promotions. And they have already started to run a lot of really tiered promotions, and the success is really good. And also our client can access and segment his data whenever he likes to, and they already have started to work with this data, and we see interesting discussions going on with them on how to use data, what to do. They will implement also retention programs soon, and once you have all the data consolidated at one place, and once you can access this data in an easy way, then you can really see an improvement in working with this data and using this data. And I think the time where marketing had to ask IT is now really over, and marketing is able to access the data by themselves, and they can work with that, and we see that this works really well. With that, we jump directly to our second trend, mobile and intelligent devices. Some call it wearables. However, the technology dramatically expands the reach and transforms the nature of loyalty programs, transforming them from transactional purchase-driven programs to more holistic, interaction engagement-based relationships, as Mike already has also said, and Mark. And day to day, a greater amount of things becomes connected. Programs can get access to more and more varied data that can be used, hopefully in future, to reward not just transactions but also behavioral interactions. Examples include insurance companies rewarding people who log, let's say, 10,000 steps daily on their Fitbits, or utility companies rewarding those who had set their Nest thermostats to be 1 degree lower than the daily average. Or another example is also the connection, let's say, to a location-based geofencing engagement platform like Hyper that allows interaction with posts on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebooks. That can be very interesting, but basically every server-based account can be linked in future to a member's loyalty account. The only big question is how far will the members go in letting us know what they do. And a little bit later I will give you an update over where the market of wearables in Central Europe is.
Thanks, Christian. Yeah, so obviously here in the U.S. I like to say we live in a right now society, so everything needs to be at our fingertips. We don't want to delay. We want everything as rapidly as we can get it, and obviously the smartphone and the cell phone, for that matter, has really driven that practice and expectation, which now has afforded us just incredible access to data, and our own data and other data, access to various applications, all at the top of our finger, at a touch of a finger. And so, you know, the smartphone, by and large, has obviously had to become part of any sort of loyalty value proposition or engagement strategy. You know, and here in the U.S., it's actually kind of funny. People are actually look cross-eyed if you have a hard line to the house, and that's how ubiquitous cell phones, and particularly smartphones, have become. And just to kind of put that into perspective, in a couple of high levels, in 2015 there were 2 key developments. For the first time, the usage for desktop actually surpassed mobile internet exceeded the desktop usage for the first time. 80% penetration of mobile devices, almost 200 million users here in the U.S., most of which were obviously smartphone enabled. And what I found incredibly interesting was in 2015, the Washington Post here estimated that the average consumer utilizes their phone better than 5 hours a day. So it's obviously impacted the way we engage our members and our consumers in a way that has become almost mainstream with respect to the way we exchange information. So we've needed to obviously optimize our communications. So what was traditionally email-based and maybe a web portal, it now needs to be optimized for mobile delivery on these smartphones and in tablets so that consumers can interact with you and their account and their data and their information anytime, anywhere. It's obviously changed the way we deliver rewards, right? So the days of a coupon or a certificate in the mail are long gone. So rewards are now digital and almost seamless and right now in terms of the things that consumers want to leverage. And we'll talk about this a little later too. They've actually varied. So you're seeing more things that are e-certificates and music and movies, those things that can be automatically downloaded and leveraged almost instantaneously. We obviously know that technology is driven large part of smartphone as well. So things like beacons and near-frequency technology, geofencing has really changed the game for how we communicate and reach our consumers and our members, both in our stores, in our brands, in our assets, and even outside of our assets, right? So communicating to consumers where they are. We talked about that earlier as well. And obviously mobile payments has changed the way we do things. So no longer do you need loyalty cards or your phone number at counter. Technology allows you to drive a lot of that information through the smartphone so that you can pay for your purchases, provide your loyalty information, access your points. And in many ways here in the States, as many of the credit card companies are trying to do, even allow you to use that, that equity within your loyalty program to pay for first purchases in real time. And we're really on the forefront of really making that happen as well. And then lastly, from that particular technology perspective for the smartphone is the ability to use camera-based functionality to participate in programs, whether it's snapping a picture for social mobile, participating from a receipt processing perspective by capturing your receipt information. And so a really good example of that particular functionality is within the consumer packaged goods vertical and the Kellogg's Family Rewards program. And in general, when you look at capabilities in the CPG market, it's really been the selling of their products through retail as opposed to going directly to consumers, right? So there has been a reliance to put forth promotional programs, incentive programs, with having to rely on that unique code that are actually put on containers and boxes and those types of things, which has huge expense and just an incredibly high degree of coordination and complexity. Not only that, the user experience oftentimes is not very flowing or seamless and can be very cumbersome and time-consuming. So what Kellogg's Family Rewards has actually done is gone to a receipt validation model to really take place of those unique codes, allowing the consumer to really have almost all of the control to be able to snap a picture of their purchases, have that information automatically uploaded and seamlessly entered into their account. So that there's very few steps. It's actually an experience that they enjoy, and it's very exciting because they can see the activity right in front of them in terms of their equity into the program. So it obviously helps in many ways, right? So it's no longer having to rely on that PIN code from Kellogg's perspective, so it's a huge cost saver. Customers are far more engaged, and their data has proved that out. And consumers enjoy the process much more. So being able to leverage that smartphone as the primary engagement tool in a program has really changed the face of how we go to market today with a lot of our programs.
So back to the United Kingdom again, we using payment, your mobile as a payment method, a little bit slow on the uptake, but then we were the first countries to get it, and Android Pay has only just launched. So 10% of the shoppers are using their mobile device. But I think the flip side of this, it actually creates an opportunity because you can encourage, if you've got a loyalty program and you're able to take mobile payments, you actually can target those people and really encourage them as a bit of fun, to test these things out. I've used my iPhone to go through the underground in London, and actually it is quite useful. We've only got to take out one, I've usually got my phone in my hand, so the fact I can then use that to get through the gate at the underground station works out quite well. But there's still some work to be done in the UK. I think, again, we're conservative shoppers, and we can use this from a loyalty perspective to actually drive engagement, make it part of the customer journey, the member journey, to really get them to spend, but actually make it part of the experience.
Yes, as you can see, let's shortly talk about mobile adoption rates, usage of internet and stuff like that. And the issue is a bit depending on the study you take in your hands or you get in your hands. Figures are different, especially most often it's not very clear to which age groups they actually look to. So, but just some important highlights. What we always see is, beside the adoption rate here of internet access and internet usage, is the more and more important how important the role of the smartphone is. In the age group of the 15 to 64-year-olds, the PEW research says in this age group of 15 to 64, you have different penetration rates from Singapore with 92%, over Sweden with 86, Australia with 79, US with 78, South Korea, Switzerland, Denmark, Spain around 76, UK, Norway around 74, and down to France with 60%. That's amazing, I have to say. So there is really, I think there is, we can say smartphone is a huge success, and this is the device that we have to cope with in future. And it can go even higher. Statista says that in Switzerland, in the age group of the 16 to 39 years old, 99% use a smartphone. In Germany, this value is 90%, according to a latest research. And overall, I think we see clearly that the trend is smart. The smartphone is simply the device. It's basically the new PC, the new one and only monitor to the internet. And if there is still a loyalty program out there that is not mobilized, to say like that, then for sure we all together have to do something, because I think there is no way around the smartphone. The usage figures clearly show that.
Just waiting for Mike to take himself off mute just for a sec and start having a quick look at the WALGREENS FITBIT tracker case study.
Apologies. I was actually talking to myself, so my apologies. WALGREENS is a great example of a loyalty program that has gone out to look for trends in the marketplace and align themselves with partners. So WALGREENS program, which has been in the marketplace here in the U.S. for about 4 or 5 years, is very tactical in nature. So it's involved in the spending within the stores and within the pharmaceutical locations. But they've also looked for, obviously from a synergy perspective, the healthy choices and the healthy living. And so they've gone out and they've partnered with, for one, FITBIT, right? So something that has actually incredibly taken off here in the States. With respect to uses, and align themselves with that healthy living and the ability to capture all sorts of data from those devices that consumers and members of these programs are willing to share with you, to give you insight into their activities and what they're doing and their likes, and actually be rewarded for that. And so, in fact, WALGREENS has gone out to align themselves with 16 mobile apps in this genre, both on Android as well as Apple, with 32 devices applicable to that. Additionally, they're able to do gamification with a lot of this information, right? To help consumers and members set goals and objectives and actually lean and train towards those objectives and share that within the social media with leaderboards and status within their program. So we're seeing this convolution, if you will, of activities that are taking your value proposition and working it with other trends in the marketplace to come up with a holistic view, that single view again, of the consumer into the marketplace.
So we might be behind on using our mobile phones with payment technology, but actually where the UK really is advanced, as a British, we're wearing our wearables, which is good. So we're seeing a huge uptake, and I think it's great because it does encourage people to be fit, but there's a real engagement here with wearables. But again, it's back down to the data. Once you actually get all this wearable data from your members, from your customers, you then need to decide what you're going to do with it. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Christian.
Yes, as we are a bit short of time, I try my best. Yeah, there is a difference between the US and Europe in using wearables. We have an average of only 6.6% of consumers in the 4 big European nations, compared to a hefty 12.2% in the US. In Europe, it's basically the Italians that adopted it fastest. They are up to 10%, but behind is France with 4.6%. The overall, also a big company like Germany is around 7%, but what we see is that the adoption rate, the market growth is unbelievable in this segment. And what is also a big difference between the US and Europe is that in the US there is a quite high preference for fitness bands over smartwatches, and the Europeans slightly prefer smartwatches a bit more than fitness wearables, but also there an interesting difference between men and women. Fitness trackers are a thing, a women thing basically, and men like smartwatches more. But I think the really interesting thing, and from a marketing perspective, the thing we have to be cautious on is the 3 most important points in purchase decision making for a wearable are value for money. That's the most important, but same important is data security. This is a thing that we don't like to hear. Europeans are obviously more cautious about their data. According to an outlook of PricewaterhouseCoopers, it's simple a question of trust. And in Germany, just 63% would entrust the data to their doctor. And this is by far the highest trust level. 53% to the family members and friends, 26% to her health insurance, but just 6% to a retailer and just 2% to their employer. So it's all about trust here, and yeah, this is a thing that we have to deal with. Jumping to the next trend, the sharing economy. 10 years ago, it wasn't considered as cool by many consumers to use coupons, buy second-hand, share a car ride, stay at someone else's house, apartment while on vacation, or buy low-cost private label brands. Today, that's normal, especially post-2008. The economical problems combined with a growing population adjusted to the concept of sharing and conservation. And as a result, this new sharing economy has arisen with entrepreneurs like Uber, Etsy, eBay, GoFundMe, Airbnb, and others, and they have really disrupted the marketplace and stolen market share from more traditional companies. And beside that sharing is more accepted now, it was basically the digital disruption of a lot of traditional businesses that encouraged this trend, because the technological changes in the last 10 years, they have made possible for vendors, suppliers, consumers, that we can share, sell, find, purchase in a very easy way. Airbnb and also Uber simply wouldn't work without the technology platform underneath. And according to a recent Crowd Companies report, there are 80 million people in the US who have participated in the sharing economy already. By 2025, this will represent around 335 billion in consumer spending in the US. In Europe, we are not that big, but heavily growing. According to data from PricewaterhouseCoopers, the sharing economy revenues hit 1 billion in 2013, then 1.8 in 2014, and then we had a gigantic leap to 3.6 million in 2015, a 97% growth rate. And the two important markets basically are P2P accommodation, that's all the likes like Airbnb, and P2P transportation, that's all the likes like Uber. Together they cover 79% of all the market revenues in this whole sharing economy. So what to do from a loyalty perspective? So I think we first should consider to find partner opportunities with complementary brands in this space. Example, let's say the ability to use points on Uber credits. Second, possibly is to consider allowing the ability for members to collaboratively earn and accrue toward a reward, or borrow loyalty currency from others so earn the reward. An example could be that you allow to transfer points from one account to another, or allow to create community accounts. And the third thing is consider rewarding consumers for purchasing and engaging with your brand when it's already in the shared economy, because remember, it doesn't have to be a purchase of a new product. It can also be a second-hand product that makes the consumer love your brand, engage with your brand, and advocate for your brand.
So thanks, Christian. Yeah, obviously social media here in the States has helped define what that sharing economy is. And to be honest, as you look at it, social media has become a part of the survival kit for engagement with consumers within loyalty constructs, right? So love it, hate it, indifferent. You have to embrace it and you have to understand it. Shoppers more today than ever are influenced by social media. In fact, they trust social media, their peers and reviews, more so than anything that comes from advertising or from brands directly. So social media has to be harnessed within the construct of a media plan, a communication strategy, an engagement strategy. What I like to say is that social media is real, it's viral, and it provides advocacy like no other. And so we talked earlier about the fact that social media has a huge impact on how consumers shop, how they make decisions, and ultimately where they make decisions. And so it's incredibly important to make sure that you're harnessing the power of social media within your planning. And so we look at, and there's so many tools now available in the marketplace, but we look at things like Travelocity for travel, Yelp for experiential and entertainment, and of course Amazon reviews for products, which is a huge tool that particularly consumers here in the U.S. Use. What are some other trends with social media? You can expect social customer service, right? So the impact of brands looking at what's going on in the social media place to resolve issues and problems and get out in front of trends from a customer service perspective, so that there's almost immediate reaction, immediacy to some of that feedback. Employee advocacy is going to be huge, right? So much like your peers communicating with you about what their experiences are, employees become advocates of particular brands and services and experiences. Video goes without saying. Video is incredible. In fact, I also saw a stat that consumers can spend up to 3 to 4 hours a day on video, which I think is very incredible number. But I've seen a number of stats in that area. So video has really taken over from a social perspective. And then obviously the social as an influencer, the marketing aspect of harnessing those consumers that are already being advocates or evangelists for you in the marketplace, and leveraging that in your marketing activities. And we can do that through websites such as Social Mention and commune.it, right? So let's take a look at how applications or programs can be set forth within the social marketplace. Heineken is a great example of this, and as we all know, Heineken is all about customer experience, so they're really on the cutting edge. You see their commercials. They're really on the cutting edge of the experience and the wow factor. Their goal in this particular program was to create a solely digital experience targeted at millennials, so 21 to 29, who by definition love to share things. They're constantly on their phone. They love to share information. They're very social and they're very mobile. The theme of this particular program was around the holidays and gift giving and exchanges. So the proposition was pretty simple. Purchase a product, scan the receipt, and get a chance to win a number of prizes, from digital to branded merchandise, and there was obviously some grand prize activities. But the premise of the program was to recruit members digitally, have them get involved digitally, refer friends to the program and their experience and their winnings, all within the social media, and get additional activity credits to go back and try to win again. So it was a total social experience around driving product and obviously buy factor to Heineken. And the outcome was substantial. They saw nearly double-digit lift in sales compared to programs where there was not such an emphasis on the digital social aspect of that promotion.
So when I spoke earlier about social media and its importance to identify the people that are following you, are they customers or not? Are they just lurking and following? So what you can't underdo, of course, is underestimate the power of social media and the impact that it can have on your business. So just looking at these numbers on this slide, you know, that percentage growth, I mean, that's huge. That's big numbers, and that trend will only go upwards. What we need to do, though, is just really be targeted about who you're talking to through social media. Really take a closer look if they actually buy from you, and those are the ones to invest in and target. So social media, absolutely important. The growth is going to continue, but it is really getting down to the nitty-gritty of micro-segmentation with the data you get for your single customer view to really make sure that growth continues.
Some statistics again. The statistics illustrate the proportion of internet users in selected European countries using social networks in 2014 and 18. Statista.de has recently published also a stat called Active Social Network Penetration in selected countries as of January 2016, and we see quite some differences to the figures you see on your screen. They say that in South Korea 76% are active social network users, down to continental Europe, where you have the highest, with France with 50%. So there is a big difference between especially Asia and the US, Canada, and also interestingly UK is much higher than continental Europe with nearly 60% of active social network penetration. Germany is down to 36%. By the way, the interesting thing is that smartphone penetration is remarkably higher than social penetration. I think this is quite clear. The interesting fact is that, and I think Mike has already mentioned it, is that we see that the youngest generation already leaves the classical social media and migrates to more visual live platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, and especially also WhatsApp. There was obviously a clear reason for Facebook to buy WhatsApp. So we're already talking about the new social media as the one-to-one messaging begins to dominate the social media world. But this creates then again a whole host of new questions, challenges, and opportunities for marketers. So the transition from public social media to chat apps will probably be the biggest change in internet culture and marketing since the rise of social media itself. Consumers consider messaging apps as more private than social media, and probably they may not react too well to the traditional interruption advertising model where brands pop up in their inbox without permission. But we clearly have to see that there is already, in the moment where we thought that we know how to deal with social media, it already has changed out there, and we have a new way of social media. And some brands do it already better. There is Adidas that is marketing through messaging apps, using WhatsApp to build hyper-local communities in cities across the world. And overall, within social media, we have to say also there's a lot of movement in it, and certainly is something to follow. And just take a look to the really youngest generation that is really leaving the classical social media already and is moving towards something else, and we have to keep an eye on that. Next.
So just before we go into the final, literally a couple of last slides, we obviously start a little bit late. We're waiting for a few to join us. So just bear with us, and then any other questions that you guys want to ask at the end will be another maybe 5 minutes, so if you can bear with us, that would be great.
Great, thanks, Carrie. So as we go through the last few slides here, obviously innovation across value propositions and engagement strategies obviously have to do with what do I get out of it? What is the reward structure? And so in every other area and aspect of program management, program design, consumers want things that are different, not the usual and customary. They don't want to do coupons and discounts all the time. They're inundated with those. They want choices. They want immediate gratification and things. They want the program to evolve with them. And so obviously what we're seeing is a change in expectations from consumers, right? So they want more choice. They want things that are exciting and particularly relevant. We've talked about that personalization throughout the conversation. They want more liquidity, right? They want to be able to take points. They want to take their earned value and move them to other places, be it internally within the program through partnership. They want instant redemption, immediate gratification, digital rewards, all the things that create this personalization and the aspirational aspects of a program. So a great example of this is Verizon Data. So we work with Verizon Data within their Smart Rewards program to essentially create the infrastructure to reward consumers with data back to their accounts for activities that they've taken within the construct of that Smart Reward program. So data as an incentive has tremendous value if you think about it. We talked about it earlier, that 80% here in the U.S. have phones, smartphones, right? So data has become an integral part of everyday living, and the use of that data and the management and the expense of that data. So what better than to provide data as a reward for basically using your phone, right? So think about it. The application are endless, and so actually Verizon, having had such great success within their own program, is now looking to largely provide data as an incentive to other companies, other verticals outside of their own program for things like downloading an application, for using an app, for social exchanges. And so the impact has been absolutely well received, and it's an example of the innovation of what consumers want and what's relevant to them. The ability to get data as a reward for things that they're already doing has become a huge incentive, and it's an example of tremendous innovation with respect to how consumers engage programs. Next.
So any part of any loyalty program as a consumer, the question we ask, what's in it for me? And if we start to look at the UK, and the total media consumption for the UK is hitting some milestones here. So what we know with a loyalty program is you have to identify what does the member actually want. So over 50% are now using digital rewards, and that'll be movie downloads, music, or as Mike said, data. So it's again very cultural. Each country does have its variances. But the mobile phone is driving this use of digital rewards because you can download the movie or the track straight to your phone.
So what I'm just going to hand over to Christian is to wrap up on the growing opportunity in Europe, and then we're going to take your questions.
Yeah, we think that that we should also think about using digital rewards as a tactical measure within a loyalty program to lower the thresholds for a lift, to encourage engagement, to get something beside nudging the consumers along the path to loyalty. We don't see a lot of this for the moment in Europe, so there is a clear opportunity for innovation. We see a lot more of big promotions for everybody, like get the sticker package for every 20 euro spent, the well-known trophy promotions where you kill a whole department for a year. But playing with small digital reward steps, to say it like that, within a loyalty program and just for loyalty members is something that we see as an innovation. And because overall the real question is, why should we give a promotion, a benefit to an unknown customer? We should really do that just where we get something back.
Guys, thank you very much for listening to all of that. So just in very brief summary, we've been talking about consumer landscape shift, mobile intelligent devices, sharing economy. We've talked about how reward goes both ways, what happens with that single customer view. So let's have a think about any questions, as we're nearly out of time and you guys have been listening very patiently for the last hour. So could you guys, if you've got any questions, send them over. I think we've had our first question up already. So if I can just read that one out, just bear with me. So we have a lovely question. So let's have a quick look at the question, so just bear with me. Okay, so where there is no POS integration and the loyalty program operates to a points-based system, are points only earned if the shopper sends a receipt in? So Mark, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. So one of the biggest challenges a retailer has is the point of sale integration to actually get the data out of the system to award the customer points. So what we have is technology that can take the receipt and take that information to award the points, but it does rely on the shopper to send the receipt to us or into our platform. But we make it very, very simple. It's very, very quick. You literally take a picture of the receipt. It's then submitted via a text message and email, or it could be via app or API. So we make it very easy. But actually what we can do is actually make that journey fun in how they send the receipt. You know, it's like taking a picture, and we're all taking pictures all the time. So we really can make it very, very easy. But what it does do by using the photo of the receipt, it actually makes the integration very, very quick, very, very simple. It actually means you don't have to integrate with the point of sale system. So if you are looking to launch a program, it really does increase the speed to market.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much. So I think we've heard also a lot about data, and as some of you are aware, there is the GDPR is coming through across Europe, which is a new data legislation, and there's going to be some very interesting things that are going to happen about the way that consumers trust and view data. So if you need any information on that, that's all on the IPM website as well. What I'd like to say now is we've run a little bit over time, so thank you for everyone for dialing in. Everything will be happening in terms of a copy and a recording of the webinar will be available shortly to all of our delegates who've signed and not everyone who's just listening. And I'm just going to flip onto screen because we've run out a little bit of time. So here are some details here. So if you'd like to talk to the speakers you've heard today, you can get in touch with them through that email address. And if you need to speak to anyone about the IPM that you've heard today, please get in touch. So I think it just remains me to thank our speakers very much from all corners of the earth. So we've had people listening from literally everywhere. To say thank you very much, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their afternoon, and hopefully anyone who's in London not getting too wet this afternoon. Thank you very much, everyone.